Biography of John F. Kennedy. Chapter 1. Early Life. John Fitzgerald Kennedy, commonly known as JFK, was born on May 29, 1917, in Brookline, Massachusetts. He was the second of 9 children in the powerful Kennedy family. His father, Joseph Kennedy Sr., was a successful businessman, and his mother, Rose Kennedy, came from a prominent family. Growing up in a wealthy and politically connected family, JFK had a privileged childhood but also faced challenges. Kennedy was often sick as a child, suffering from illnesses like colds, fevers, and back problems. Despite these health issues, he was an active and curious boy. He attended several schools before going to Harvard University, where he studied political science. At Harvard, he became interested in world affairs, which would shape his future career. He graduated from Harvard in 1940. After finishing college, Kennedy joined the U.S. Navy during World War II. He served as a naval officer in the Pacific Ocean and showed bravery during his service. His boat, PT-109, was hit by a Japanese ship, and Kennedy helped save the lives of his crew members, earning him a Navy and Marine Corps medal for his heroism. This experience shaped Kennedy's leadership qualities and sense of duty. Chapter 2. Political Beginnings. After the war, John F. Kennedy entered politics, following in the footsteps of his father. In 1946, he ran for Congress and won a seat in the U.S. House of Representatives, representing Massachusetts. Kennedy quickly made a name for himself with his intelligence and strong communication skills. He was known for his work on issues like labor rights and veterans affairs. In 1952, Kennedy ran for the U.S. Senate and won. As a senator, he became known for his work on foreign policy, especially his concerns about the spread of communism during the Cold War. Kennedy was also dedicated to improving the U.S. economy and supporting civil rights for African Americans. He believed that the United States needed to be a global leader in promoting democracy and freedom. In 1960, Kennedy decided to run for President of the United States. He faced a tough opponent in Richard Nixon, the Vice President under Dwight D. Eisenhower. Despite being young and relatively inexperienced compared to Nixon, Kennedy's charm, energy, and vision helped him win the election. His success in the election was partly due to his strong performance in the first-ever televised presidential debates, which made him more popular with the American public. Chapter 3. The Presidency Begins. John F. Kennedy was inaugurated as the 35th President of the United States on January 20th, 1961. At the age of 43, he was the youngest person ever elected to the presidency. His inauguration speech is famous for the line, "Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country." This speech set the tone for his presidency, emphasizing public service and national pride. Kennedy's presidency began during a time of tension between the United States and the Soviet Union. The Cold War was in full swing, and many feared the possibility of nuclear war. Kennedy's foreign policy focused on containing communism and defending democracy worldwide. His administration faced several major crises, including the Bay of Pigs invasion and the Cuban Missile Crisis, which brought the world to the brink of war. Despite these challenges, Kennedy pushed forward with his domestic agenda, known as the New Frontier, where he focused on improving the economy advancing civil rights, and funding space exploration. Kennedy's vision for the future of America was one of progress, equality, and global leadership. He inspired Americans to aim for greater achievements in all aspects of life. Chapter 4: The Cuban Missile Crisis. One of the most significant events during John F. Kennedy's presidency was the Cuban Missile Crisis, which occurred in October 1962. The Soviet Union had placed nuclear missiles in Cuba, just 90 miles from the US coast. This caused a tense standoff between the United States and the Soviet Union, as both sides prepared for the possibility of war. Kennedy responded by demanding the removal of the missiles and placing a naval blockade around Cuba. The world watched anxiously as the two superpowers came close to war. After several days of intense negotiations, the Soviet Union agreed to remove the missiles in exchange for the United States promising not to invade Cuba and secretly removing missiles from Turkey. The Cuban Missile Crisis was a turning point in Kennedy's presidency. It showed his leadership and ability to manage a dangerous international situation with calm and intelligence. It also led to better communication between the United States and the Soviet Union, including the establishment of a direct hotline to prevent future misunderstandings. Chapter 5: Civil Rights and Social Change. During his presidency, John F. Kennedy faced growing demands for civil rights reform in the United States. African Americans were fighting against segregation and discrimination, and Kennedy knew that change was needed. In 1963, he gave a powerful speech in support of civil rights, calling for a law to end racial segregation in public places and protect voting rights. Kennedy sent legislation to Congress that would become the Civil Rights Act of 1964, though he did not live to see it passed. His efforts helped to push the national conversation forward on issues of race, equality, and justice. The movement for civil rights gained momentum, and Kennedy's leadership helped to inspire further progress. Kennedy also supported other social changes, including increasing federal funding for education and healthcare. He believed that the government had a role to play in improving the lives of all Americans. His vision of a better, more just society was reflected in his support for programs to help the poor, the elderly, and the disenfranchised. Chapter 6: The Space Race and the Moon Landing. John F. Kennedy was deeply committed to the United States space program. In 1961, he made the bold promise that America would send a man to the moon before the end of the decade. This became the goal of the Apollo program, led by NASA. Kennedy's vision for space exploration inspired the country to invest heavily in science and technology. Kennedy saw space exploration as a way for the US to demonstrate its technological superiority over the Soviet Union during the Cold War. His leadership in this area was a major factor in the success of the US space program. In 1969, just a few years after Kennedy's death, the US successfully landed astronauts on the moon, fulfilling his vision. Kennedy's focus on space exploration also helped to drive innovation in other fields, including computer technology, engineering, and education. The space race created thousands of jobs and advanced scientific knowledge, leaving a lasting legacy in American history. Chapter 7: Foreign Policy and Global Leadership. John F. Kennedy's presidency was marked by his efforts to manage the Cold War and strengthen America's role on the global stage. He believed that the United States should lead by example, promoting democracy, freedom, and human rights around the world. One of his first actions as president was to strengthen alliances with Western European countries and support newly independent nations in Africa and Asia. Kennedy's administration also worked to stop the spread of communism, which was one of the greatest fears during the Cold War. He supported efforts to resist communist influence in countries like Vietnam and Cuba. He also helped create the Peace Corps, a program that sent young Americans to developing countries to assist with education, healthcare, and community development. Despite these efforts, Kennedy faced criticism for some of his foreign policy decisions, especially regarding Vietnam and Cuba. However, his approach to diplomacy and global leadership helped to shape U.S. foreign policy for many years. Chapter 8: The Legacy of the Kennedy Administration. Although John F. Kennedy served only a short time as president, his legacy has been profound. His speeches, policies, and leadership continue to inspire people around the world. His vision of a better future, whether in terms of civil rights, space exploration, or global peace, has had a lasting impact on American society. Kennedy's presidency is often remembered for its energy, optimism, and hope. He embodied the spirit of a new generation of Americans, eager to take on challenges and change the world. His call to serve the nation and to strive for excellence became a rallying cry for many in the 1960s and beyond. Kennedy's legacy also includes his work to promote civil rights, economic progress, and international cooperation. Even though his life was cut short, his vision for America and the world has inspired generations of leaders and citizens to continue working toward a more just, peaceful, and prosperous society. Chapter 9: Assassination and Aftermath. On November 20, 1963, John F. Kennedy was tragically assassinated in Dallas, Texas, while riding in a motorcade. He was shot by a sniper and died at the age of 46. His death shocked the world, and millions of people mourned the loss of a young, visionary leader. Kennedy's assassination marked a turning point in American history. The country went through a period of mourning and uncertainty. Lyndon B. Johnson, Kennedy's vice president, was sworn in as his president and continued many of Kennedy's policies. The nation, however, would never be the same without JFK. The investigation into Kennedy's assassination led to various theories and controversies, but his death remains one of the most tragic events in U.S. history. Despite this, his legacy as a champion of civil rights, space exploration, and global diplomacy continues to live on. Chapter 10: The Enduring Impact of John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy's life and presidency continue to inspire people today. His vision of a better world, his focus on equality and justice, and his call to action for Americans to serve their country are powerful ideals that still resonate. His leadership during moments of crisis, such as the Cuban Missile Crisis, showed his ability to lead with wisdom and calm. The Kennedy family has remained a prominent figure in American politics, with many of his relatives continuing to serve in public office. JFK's speeches, particularly his inaugural address and his Ask Not speech, are still quoted and studied. His presidency and his ideas about leadership, equality, and progress continue to shape American politics. John F. Kennedy's legacy is one of hope, courage, and dedication to public service. Even though his time as president was brief, his impact on the world and on American history is lasting. His vision for a better future is still an inspiration to all who seek a more just, peaceful, and prosperous world.